Hello there, generals. Are you ready for some communism today? So, a lot of people are, Nickelodeon is taken over by, the people. You know who took over Nickelodeon? And now it's propaganda, shooting communist propaganda at kids. So, yes, communist propaganda time. So, why is the communist propaganda destroying right now? The environmental racism. Well, it's very simple. They're just doing the typical. Oh my God! Look, this group of people are, have worse outcomes in, let's say the place they're at have worse outcomes overall, right? And there must be oppression or whatever, typical communist theory. So, how does it even work? Does it even make sense? Well, in a way, it does. You see, the way it works is very simple. You see, they just look at outcomes and that's it. So what's the outcome? Well, as it turns out, if you live in, not so well areas, then there's two little factors involved, which is, of course, uh, pollution tends to lower the land value of areas, which makes them more appealing for people who don't have much money to spend, and blacks tend to be, you know, uh, much likely to be in that group for reasons. And then, of course, low value areas are also cheap and actually attract pollution itself. So, just the mechanics of low value area itself is really the issue. It's got nothing to do with my waste, okay? Nothing to do with that. It's not racism, alright? Obviously, it's not. Nobody's intending to throw it on the blacks. And in fact, many cases, the blacks themselves are going to those areas anyway. Nobody's forcing them into those areas. They just said, "Oh, it's cheaper there, so we're just gonna go live there," right? And I guess again, according to communist logic, they're being forced there because they I don't know, we didn't drop enough money on them, not yet. Need to drop them another $1 million in free stuff. But yeah, so that's the idea. Okay, now, is it our problem? No, it's not our problem. Like, how are you gonna solve that? Oh, are we gonna give? Well, the idea of them would be like what? How do you solve the environmental racism? It's obviously just not an excuse to get more money out of people. That's what it is. Generals, another communist scam to squeeze more money, to justify the state to squeeze more cash out of you, so then you can, I guess, clean up these areas or something, which I really doubt is gonna happen, or whatever. Like, here's the thing, like, let's say they clean up those areas, then the land value goes up, right? Okay, so now these people are gonna have a harder time living there because they're so poor. So then the next step, we need to give them more free money, so make up for that, right? But then that doesn't really solve any of the underlying issues on why they're like that in the first place. So, but you can't really solve at this point. But it doesn't solve it. So you end up with this communist. You can end up with a communist problem in the end of, oh boy, we can't really solve the fundamental problems. We're trying to dump money into it all the time, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. Okay, so this is just a distraction, a pointless thing. And don't forget, these kiddos are gonna be watching the propaganda about environmental racism. Of course, to be made feel bad, feel guilty. Oh my God, it's my fault. It's my fault that these blacks are living in these polluted areas. Also, who knows? It's not even something like these areas are full of radioactive waste. It just they have a little bit more smog than other areas. Maybe they're like a few miles on average close to a landfill in other areas. It's always that type of thing, right? It's always they're playing with numbers, the outcome numbers, and seeing, oh, where is an inequality we can prattle on about. Because again, it's also a part of giga egalitarianism, where they go and they say, oh, well, any inequality is a problem, even though maybe it's whatever. Like, oh, there's some pollution, more pollution. Okay, so what? What's the issue? It can't be. Let's face it. Do you think these areas are more polluted than, let's say, smog-ridden cities 2 centuries ago? Not even close. These guys probably don't even feel the pollution. All right, just a complete and utterly useless whining. We could find, again, the problem with this communist logic of trying to find inequalities everywhere and then blame it on oppression and then whatever is, look, you can do that for anything. You can find an infinite number of inequalities to try to pin it on, oh, bad inequality. You can do that very, very easily. Okay, so don't fall for the trick. Even if you're one of them or wants to fall for the trick because it's convenient politically. Don't. It's stupid. Really, really, really stupid. It doesn't matter at all because you can't solve it, can you? Eh? Everything's gonna go against you if you try to, like, I don't know, like, makes sense. Like, how do you even equalize that anyway? How does that even make sense? How do you equalize? I guess you would. Oh, that's another way. They'll shove all the people from these bad areas into the better areas. They're gonna bust them in. Do you want do you want to bust these people into your areas? I don't think so. There's gonna be some negative outcomes that's gonna happen. Okay, you don't want that to happen. So yeah, whatever thing they're gonna use to justify this with is just gonna be bad, bad overall, bad, bad, bad. Nothing good comes out of this of communist logic. Nothing good at all. And I believe at this point that, well, there's a question, like, when we're fighting this type of stuff, it's really difficult because, let's face it, like, the Nickelodeon are gonna easily get to your, like, well, easily get to the children, and a lot of children too. Of course, you can just shut it off and not let your children see it, but a lot of people don't know or want the children to see this propaganda. So yeah, that's gonna be a really iffy thing. And also, don't forget, of course, that the way communist logic is really appealing to children because it's very childlike logic. All right. Usually, when they apply communist logic, it's not even the tier of the original theorists, the ones who originally created the theory on the communism. That's a bit more gobbledygook. That's a bit more complicated to tackle. This one, usually, this is just simple. The outcome is not equal is bad type of logic. Very simple. Very simple indeed. Yeah, and also and of course, the assumptions that you can just dismiss because they're nonsense. But, again, it's really, the cultural battles are ongoing, right? They're ongoing. And really, the last thing, that if you want, look, here's the thing. You know what the problem is? And a lot of people don't want to hear it, but the problem fundamentally isn't environmental racism. Like, that's not the issue. The issue is something else. The issue is something else. The issue, and the reason why the communists can even get this far, is because everyone, oh no, but most people have this weird, moralistic sort of. They've been brainwashed to think that, oh, inequalities in many kinds of inequalities are just bad. Oh, they're just bad. Inequality is so bad. We can't have inequality. But there's some kinds of inequalities that people don't realize. But that's like certain kinds of anti-inequality, I guess. Although you can say it's egalitarianism, which people don't realize actually that's what it is. So what is it? Well, what can you guess? Environmental racism is exactly that, right? Probably the second word by generals. The second word falls under that. Okay? The second word is trying to pathologize pathologize a normal human behavior, which is that you treat humans of different groups differently. That's one, and you will treat yours a certain way, and others another way. So what happens, of course, is they're trying to pathologize normal human behavior. And once they succeeded in doing this, guess what? Guess little what? They can then bridge towards the rest of the shit. Very simple. So you have to pay attention to these words that they managed to pathologize earlier in the history. They managed to pathologize, like, let's say 100 years ago or whatever, or 50 years ago, 70 years ago, right? They pathologize these words, and now they're using them to build new stuff. So if you just take away their root, they can't do any of this. But is anyone really willing to do that? Are you even allowed to do that? No, you're not. Because the cult has taken over. The meta cult has completely taken over at this point. Very few people will be willing to make that sort of make that offensive across the lines. Right? That would really push the enemy a large distance. If you just give up that, like, you just give it up. Like, you don't lose a damn thing if you give that up, but you win a lot because the enemy loses a big psychological hold over you and everyone else that you're able to, flip to your side on this issue. So think wisely, generals, and maybe you wouldn't have to deal with crazy shit like environmental racism soon. Maybe you won't, but until people are willing to do that, enjoy.